Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining me. I'm Nicholas W. Fuller, and this is Person Behind the Pages, the show where we get to know the creators that make the things we love. Tonight, I am joined for the second time by the lovely and wonderful Kia Leap. How you doing, Kia?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for being here, and congratulations! You've got a book on Amazon.
I know.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild, a little bit surreal.
Right, right. So just came out yesterday, right?
It did, yes. The 14th.
Yeah, so that's pretty amazing and exciting and awesome and all those things. We got some folks saying hi. I know that name. How you doing, Jerusha and Justine? How you doing?
You guys
Oh,
didn't know you'd get
hey.
spotlighted on the stream.
Oh, now,
They're
yeah.
my anxious introvert friends.
Oh, well, I mean, they're it's all good. They're just behind a keyboard. No worries, right? Right? So, well, thank you all for being here and congratulations again. Thank you, Kia, for being here. I'm excited to talk about all the things. And of course, in chat, if you guys have questions or things that you guys want to ask too, or whatnot, drop it in. But yeah, we
I'm
want to.
basically an open book, so you guys can ask me whatever you want. Treat it as a Emma and ask me anything,
There you go.
about books, about characters, about the process, about my dog who's here joining us
Oh
because he
yeah,
can't leave me alone whenever I'm at my computer.
we need to.
He sees that I'm working at my computer and he's like, "All right, time to go bother them."
This is the way. I've got like a little love seat in my office over there, and like sometimes I like to sit over there and try to write with the laptop, but then one of my five dogs, which is too many, but one of my five dogs will like try to get right up in my business, like, and I'm like, get off of me.
Yeah, I also like will sometimes move downstairs just for like a different like change of location. And
Seen,
if I'm
yeah.
on my laptop instead of at my desk, then he'll be like, "Oh, it's an invitation to jump up on the couch and like try to crawl on your lap." I'm like, "You're
Yeah,
not a
right?
lap dog. You're
Yeah.
70 pounds. You can't do
What
that."
are you doing? Yes. Team dog. Justine has one. That's a reasonable number of dogs. Five. I know. All right. Oh my god, perfect. How did you decide to write a story about a sentient glass bottle? So I want to get there, but like before we get to like that specifically, let's talk about it's a sentient glass bottle. I mean, that's the description of the story, right? Can you give us like a little bit of a well, I mean that's not the whole description, but can you give us a pitch, please, Kia?
I mean, that's a pretty solid pitch right there. So it's a story about a gay man who gets turned into a bottle of ink and then is conscripted to do a senile wizard's yard work. And along the way, he tries to communicate with the wizard and he becomes friends with a clockwork octopus who is like him, it's also a soul trapped into a small body, and they go on an adventure to try to get their bodies back. So yeah,
Love
I
it.
guess I
Okay.
should. Ah,
So many ooh,
I
shiny.
know.
Ooh, can we get an ooh ah chat? Can we get an ooh ah? I love it. I love it. Um, all right. So many questions with this though. Like, so he's turned into a bottle of ink. He's a glass bottle of ink. So he's a little bit fragile, I imagine, at this stage, right?
Also emotionally.
How, thank you, chat. You delivered. You delivered on the oohs and the ahs. I love it. Thank you. How like is he transported into like a completely different world, or is there somehow like this wizard in this magic bottle? Like I'm assuming that the main character begins like he's an actor, and this is here on Earth.
Yeah. So, this is kind of a classic isekai trope, and this also goes off of Justine's earlier question earlier, where she said, "How did you decide to write a story about a sentient bottle of ink?" I was
Hmm.
watching a lot of isekai anime and quite enjoying it, but also being like, none of this is explained, and I want it to be explained. So,
Hmm.
like, why does dying on Earth when you get hit by a truck mean you wake up in a fantasy land? Like, that's really cool. That's great, but why? And so that was like one of the things that like I started thinking about the story that I wanted to write. And so I'm like, okay, well, what would happen that would make you get transported to a fantasy land? And in Glass Cannon, he dies on set. He's an actor.
Mhm.
And instead of going to the afterlife, his soul passes through the between, which is an area or a dimension that sort of connects all worlds. And it's where you go through before you move on to the afterlife. However, before he's able to go to the afterlife, he gets caught in a spell and gets wrangled into this fantasy world. And so it's a complete accident. And it was just a case of wrong place, wrong time. And so he and one other soul who happened to be moving through between both get pulled into their clockwork and glass bodies that they're in for the rest of the book.
Wow. All right. How long does it take main character to realize that he's not like just method acting? You know what I mean? Like he's not actually in a different scene. He's in a fantasy world.
Yeah, he figures it out pretty darn quick. Well, first he realizes that he's died. He can still kind of hear like the echoes of people talking from where his body is, and
Oh
he puts
wow.
it together pretty quick that a terrible accident has occurred. And then, since he's trapped there with another character, she sort of explains what's going on, which was another thing that, like, when I first thought up the idea of, okay, I want to have a character that's stuck in a glass bottle, and it would be fun to just like deal with how would they communicate and how would they move and how would they, develop and navigate through the world. I realized that it was going to be a really boring story if it was just him and it was just his thoughts and there was nothing externally that he was interacting or communicating with. And so that's why there's this second character to
Sure.
kind of like help explain things, is that I
Sure.
I wanted to give him someone to talk to and interact with and just like have banter with. And Noli ended up being the favorite character even more so than the main character. So
Yeah.
it's funny that I
Clearly.
kind of
Yeah.
invented this character on the fly,
Nice.
and she ended up being more loved than the main character of the series.
I think that's a sign of writing a good secondary character. That's awesome. Um, Yeah, and I like how yeah, it wasn't just sort of a god did it for the explanation, but at the same time, like, so this does explain like what you kind of why you wanted to write this story in like this way and have an explanation, but it doesn't necessarily explain why you decided glass bottle specifically. So like, what was it about glass bottle that you're like, this is the thing, I don't.
Yeah,
We
I
don't
should
need
look
like
it up.
magic lions like Asgard,
I've
no.
got a document that is just my ideas document, and
Yeah.
anytime an idea pops into my head, I just jot it down in there so that it doesn't vanish into the ether. And so at one point, I was actually working on a book for traditional publishing, which was this witchy, queer story about like cults and eldritch gods and drowned titans and stuff like that. And it was really fun,
Nice.
but I was so burnt out on TradPuff because every time I went back to it, I was writing it and I was like, I,
Oh
what can I
god.
change to make the agent want it? What can I change to make it more appealing to publishing houses? And I got to a point where I was like, why am I changing this thing that I like to appease other people? And so that's when I went to my ideas document and started going through it and being like, I just need a break. I'm just kind of burnt out. What would be fun and different and like, traditional publishing would never touch?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
And that was Glass Cannon.
which I love,
And
yeah.
yeah,
I was, as I was, like, kind of sharing that we're gonna chat, I'm like, "Yo, if you're looking for something unique and different, here's your story," right? Because who else is writing about magic glass bottles doing yard work? None that I'm aware of, you know?
yeah, yeah. So it was kind of like originally intended just as like a break and just as an exercise. Like, how do you emote when you have no face, when you have no body? Like, there's when you're writing characters, there's a lot of
Mm,
ways that you can show a character's feelings through expression or body language. They can be like their shoulders slump or they frown or whatever, but you can't do any of that when your character is literally just a glass orb. And so it was actually very challenging, but in a very fun way to find ways to express his emotions without just being like, I felt sad, I felt happy. You still don't want to tell it every single time. You want to find ways to show it as well. And
right.
without everything that we typically lean on as authors, that was very difficult, but very fun as well. I really enjoyed that.
Nice. Okay. I love all the activity in the chat. I love this, except for this one. Of course, I asked, like, why a glass bottle and this troll. I love it though. I love this dad
Hey.
joke here. Yeah, right. Great, great. Um, but yeah, like I like where is it?
As
Yeah,
you can
what came
probably tell
first?
from the title, I'm a big fan of puns.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nailed it. So that which is perfect. What came first? The idea of the glass bottle or the title itself?
Um, I think kind of both in different ways. So I think I wrote the in my ideas document, it wasn't a character is reborn as a glass bottle. It was a character is reborn as something very small and has to build up their body along the way. And so I hadn't decided that it was glass at that point. I just
Hmm.
knew that it was something small like a toy or a piece of metal or something, and I wanted the story to be about building up their body and developing this magic around whatever element that was. um, and then I think I was brainstorming ideas, and I was like, they're going to be like so weak, like as a little person like that's 3 inches tall. They're going to be very weak, but they're going to have to use magic, so they're going to be like a magic use that's very weak. And I was like, a glass cannon is the standard trope for a character that is super weak but also very powerful. And I was like, okay, that would be a lot of fun. I could make the character glass. And then I was like, can I just make a pun off of cannon? So I just wrote phonetically a name that sounded like cannon, and that's where his name came from, and that's where the title came from. And then I was like, oh man, there's a lot of other pun potential here with cannon. So that's why I came up with like, all right, I got like at least like 5 or 6 solid title ideas for the next books.
Nice, nice. Good times. All right, all right. So I love Wake was sculpted before it was this. I love it, dude.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so he was an actor and he was pretty vain, and like his identity was tied to his body, and which he spent a lot of time on. So that was kind of part of the emotional aspect of the story, is him dealing with this thing that is tied to his identity being gone. But
Mhm.
also, yeah, he was sad he doesn't have abs anymore. And
Mm.
funnily enough, in the most recent version, for the third book that I'm writing, my cover artist just got back to me and she gave me like a potential what she thinks the cover should look like. And it's Cannon, who's in a glass body, but he's got abs on his his glass form. And I'm like, he would never use the glass abs, but he would. Cannon would give himself glass abs, so it was very fitting.
Nice. Okay. Well, I definitely want to talk about kind of later books and whatnot, but I would a lot of just still focus on this first one. I mean, we talked a little bit about kind of pitch, but I had this experience recently, and tell me if you've had something like this. So I have a young daughter and went to a birthday party from one of her friends from her daycare and ended up talking with another one of the fathers. And I dropped like, oh yeah, I've been working on a book. And he's like, oh really? Tell me about the book that which was great, which was great. But I went, bah. Like,
So awkward every
right?
time.
I had no idea what to say. And like, so I'm trying to work on that. But I talked with another friend who recently sold like 200 physical copies of his books at a weekend like art mart, you
Awesome.
know? Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. The dude does a great job of selling in person. He's finding that that's kind of his jam. So I was like, bro, help me out here. Like, how do you pitch? And like, so we talked a little bit about how he pitches and like a little bit about how he kind of tries to be a little bit vague, but just enough to kind of get some interest and but also, you know, get their attention and let them sort of fill in like just enough of blanks, you know. Um, but he also tailors his pitch to the person, the audience, and what they're into. So if he can
Yep.
find out first like what they're into, then he'll sort of, you know, highlight different aspects of the book based on what they're into. So long-winded, but like how do you, I'm assuming that you kind of have at this point multiple different pitches in mind, or like it's certainly because your book has been on Royal Road for a while, you must have like kind of different reviews that have stuck out where certain things like resonate with different people, right?
Mhm. Yeah. So originally when I was going to publish it on Royal Road, I was thinking, "Ah, this will be cool. I'll just write like a lit RPG book and I can just fit as a diverse lit RPG book." And I'm sure that a lot of people who are reading lit RPG would enjoy having more diversity, more queer characters, characters with disabilities, people of color. I was like, that would just be cool. And then I found that my actual audience was not just general Royal Road readers who want diversity. It was specifically the queer audience that was who found me. So it was interesting that like originally I kind of went in pitching it as one way, like, oh, it's this, just a lit RPG book with characters that happen to be queer, and then unintentionally that sort of just funneled me into like it turns out like that's my target audience, so not just like people in general, but specifically queer readers in the genres, probably the majority of my audience, not all of them, but a lot.
Mhm.
And yeah, we all, I think someone said we flocked in, and yeah, we find each other, we read each other's stories. But so as far as pitches go, mine kind of shifted over time. And I do tailor it to the different audiences. So if I know that you're interested in non-human characters, then I, kind of pitch that element. It's characters reborn as a bottle of ink, and has to learn magic that deals with glass and upgrading his body, because that's kind of what that audience is interested in. And then for just queer readers, I just emphasize that there's a ton of queer representation in the book, and the main character gets a gay love interest later on in the series, and there's lots of just a variety of representation. And then yeah, those are pretty much like the two main demographics. It's either like my queer readers or like my non-human readers. And there's a significant overlap between queer and non-human readers, especially like in non-binary circles. I think we tend to gravitate towards characters that are, a little bit off the beaten path.
Sure.
But yeah, I found that like if I'm talking to people in person, I definitely tailor what I'm saying based off of what I know of that person. If I'm just talking to someone randomly, I'm like, I write a fantasy book. Like, it's fantasy. That's all you need to know. I had my neighbor down the street actually was talking to me earlier today. He's like, well, tell me about your book. I was like, it's a fantasy book, just your typical fantasy stuff. But I'm like,
Right.
he wouldn't know lit RPG. He's not like interested
Sure.
in there being queer. If I told him that he's a bottle of ink, he'd be like, okay. So I don't know. I just like I kind of am able to like look at who I'm talking to and kind of size up what they'd be interested in.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, he would be like, okay, bottle of ink, but he wouldn't forget it, you know?
It's not forgettable.
No, no. I love, yeah, the like art of the book and whatnot, and you're showing, yeah, the glass bottle. It's amazing. So, first question, and this is probably a quick one, and you've kind of already addressed it, I think, because it's magic. But how does a bottle of ink do yard work? You know?
With extreme difficulty. Yeah, so I think we'll see that he does mostly like he sweeps the floor. He finds like a feather to sweep the floor, and he like is able to fill the sink with water and like do some dishes. So, but yeah, as far as like going out into the yard, it's a little bit more difficult. So.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So, what can you do? Like, one thing that, of course, fantasy books sometimes it draws us in is like an interesting magic system. That's Sanderson's whole shtick, right? Is like he's the magic system guy, right? Um, what is your magic system like? Can you tell us a little bit for
I don't
people that have
think
not been exposed?
I don't think my magic system is like that unique, honestly. I think it's like traditional kind of magic system. It's
Yeah,
like
no,
spells
that's
that you can
totally fair.
learn.
Every book I've read has like characters and magic bottles that bring themselves together. That's yeah, good point. Good
Well,
point.
it's like kind of a semi-elemental based magic system where like people will tend to have their specialties, and they can like dig deeper into that specialty, or they can go more broad. So you're not like
Okay.
locked into just one element. You can learn other ones, but ones that are closer to the one that you naturally can do will be easier to learn versus something that's opposite to what you're doing. So Canon starts
Okay.
out with just glass, and that's all he can attune at first. So most of his magic is based on just being able to manipulate glass and do spells with glass.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
then later he gets some void abilities as well, which is effectively what his ink is void. So um
Nice.
I don't want to go too
Okay.
far into spoilers there, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's got two different affinities that he does, and then there's some interesting ways that those two affinities can be combined to create different effects.
I love this. So, yeah, yeah, and Cannon's problem solving so creative. This sounds very much like there's like the hard magic system and the soft magic system. And like something where you just sort of like wave a wand and like magic happens, and there's
Mhm.
like, this is fixed because I did the fixing spell. Like, that's a soft magic system, but a hard magic system has kind of rules. And what's great about a hard magic system is that it allows room for the character to be clever with it. And it sounds like that's what you've got. That's what you've built. And he's expanding as the books go on with like more abilities, right?
Yeah. So I'd say it is a hard magic system in that in my head I have like, here's all the different elements that you can have, and you can't just like randomly shoot off a water spell if you want to, but you're a fire mage.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
so there's definitely restrictions in what characters can do. But I definitely started off a lot more crunchy at the beginning, where,
Mm,
like, I got a lot more into the mechanics and a lot more numbers, and then I've pulled back from that a little bit the further I go into the series, just because I think it bogs things down a bit, and you don't really need all of those numbers in the moment. I will touch on them when I think that they're relevant, and I think I've gotten better about figuring out when it is best to mention the numbers and the stats and stuff. But I definitely am a little bit more soft with that now than I was when I first started.
totally fair. Glass does tend to be crunchy. It's a good point.
Eh,
Hey, Cannon is a glass type. I don't know if that's intended to be a Pokemon reference, but that's how I'm like reading it. So,
yeah.
uh, um, fixed mana limits. Tell me more. Tell me more.
Oh, yeah. So characters have like a specific amount of mana pool based on how good they are innately at magic or how much they practice magic and try to get better at it. So someone who doesn't use magic a lot has a smaller mana pool versus someone who's focused on being a wizard and has a lot of magic at their disposal. So in book one, at the very beginning, Canon starts with 10 mana, which is the minimum possible. It is almost nothing. And so, especially in book one, he really struggles with needing to like decide how long it's going to take for his mana to recover and what spells can he do in the meantime, and just deciding, at what time does it make sense to do what spells, and is it better to hold on to mana in case they need it for something later. Now, 3 books in, he's got a lot more mana at his disposal, so he can do a lot more magic. But it was definitely very much a limiting factor in that first book, and even the second book.
Nice, nice. And of course, in the Amazon description, it talks also about a shadow monster that wants to control his mind. What is going on with this
Yes.
shadow monster?
So
So,
I love tropes that involve like mental battles or like struggle of the will and stuff like that. Turns
mhm.
out that is not a well loved trope in lit RPG.
Okay. Okay.
So I originally, that like mentioning that there's like a shadow monster that wants to control his mind was not in my blurb because I didn't think it was relevant, and it comes in like later in the story, and
Mhm, mhm.
I didn't want to like spoil kind of later stuff. But a lot of people really didn't like that. So now it's like in the blurb up front, there's going to be some sort of mental battle of the wills that you can expect going into this series. And if you don't like that, this probably isn't the
Yeah,
book for
just
you.
nope
But
out now, right? Yeah.
I love ideas of like playing with autonomy and what, how does that like define you, and how are you able to get around restrictions of your autonomy. And I just think that's really fun to play with. And again, it turns out that's not a well-loved trope in lit RPG, but the people who are my fans, I found my fans. They they enjoyed it anyway. So but yeah, it's there is an entity that Canon encounters that kind of gets stuck to his soul, and they're vying for control effectively.
Interesting, interesting. That's surprising actually, because I was telling you that I kind of got sucked into that He Who Fights with Monsters series,
Hmm.
and there's a big part in, I think, the first. It's broken up to like there's very clear arcs in the two. I've read the first two trilogies, so 6 books. There's very clear arcs in the first two, and that first trilogy, there's this big like battle for like Jason Lozano is the main character, and there is a significant battle for like his identity and his being and whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, but
I
but
think.
I mean, it does kind of like actually happen sort of quick, and it's sort of just like it's a lot of like resisting. and there's never like a lot of like him losing control. So maybe
Yeah.
that's part of why
I think
people are.
that's probably it. Yeah. But for me, I like to have moments where the characters lose like that, so that they can come back stronger and then have like more satisfying victories. So I will have times where my characters do lose the battle of control. But again, that's not generally enjoyed within progression fantasy. I think a lot of progression fantasy really enjoys seeing the character overcome obstacles, and anytime there's a loss of autonomy, and especially like a loss of powers, which is also something I include briefly. um, they don't like that because they want to see characters that are continuously getting more powerful and stronger and more able to put their will into the world instead of having to bend their will to others.
Right,
So
right.
that's kind of a lesson learned on my part. Like I knew it wasn't popular, but I was just writing what I enjoyed. So I didn't truly understand how unpopular it was until I started getting some of those comments.
Well, whatever. Like you said, you love that shadow monster. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, it makes it
it
feel like
takes
that.
a while to get there, but Shadow Monster, you can kind of think of like a Venom-like character. There is this morally ambiguous character
Nice.
attached to the main character who's powerful, but as I said, morally ambiguous, which is what I really enjoy. But you do have to get to that point. It's a
Sure.
continuously developing character, so they're very much just kind of straight up evil at first.
Nice. Nice. Well, I like that. I mean, it sounds like a lot of fun, and clearly a lot of people are agreeing. You've cracked the top 100 in a couple categories since you came out on Amazon just yesterday, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah. And if this is obviously your Amazon debut, which is exciting. And and by the way, you're available ebook, print, and audiobook now,
And
right?
audiobook, yeah. Daniel Henning is my narrator, which was really cool. Um, I knew when I went into this that I wanted to get narrators who were the same identity as my characters. So, because I'm
Hmm.
also writing a different book that has
Hard to
a
cast that
romantic.
glass bottle, though. You know,
Yeah, right. It's really hard to find a glass bottle who was in narration.
that could do
Uh,
the accent that I wanted too. Like, yeah, I mean,
yeah. So,
yeah,
so I've also got like an aromantic main character, a trans main character, and a non-binary main character. And if and
nice.
when I get audiobooks for those, I'm also going to be pursuing narrators who are trans, non-binary, and aromantic, because I just feel like this is for them. It's for us who don't have a lot of representation. So I want to help narrators also have that opportunity. But
There you
anyway,
go.
yeah, Daniel Henning is awesome. And it's been really weird and surreal to listen to my audiobook. Like I mean, this probably doesn't bother you anymore because you record a lot, but it's like listening to your own voice, and
Hmm.
that like how that makes you like, when you like listen to your own voice. That's kind of what listening to my audiobook was like. Not that he like did a bad job, he did an amazing job. It was just like this level of like surrealness of hearing somebody else reading my story. It was just very strange.
Yeah, I think that would take some getting used to. This is a hilarious comment and deserves.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love, that's the
Just
glass bottle. It's the
like
narrator. Yeah,
like
yeah.
tinkling sounds, that's it.
You just get like a whole bunch of glass bottles and go over each one until you get like the. No, no, no. All right. Anyway, I do see this question. We're gonna get there, but just waiting on that just a second. But yeah, sick. So yeah, in a simultaneous release, ebook, print, and audio. Um, I think yeah. Like, tell me a little bit about how this came to be. Like, so the book has been on Royal Road for a full year or close to a year.
It's over a year. I actually published January 1st, 2024,
Oh,
so now
nice.
it's been a year and 2 weeks. So I was just posting on Royal Road and starting to gain an audience and doing all the things you're supposed to do on Royal Road, like
Starting to
do
get yeah, you're so
swaps
modest.
and
Starting to get you've
I
got like you've 700,000 views on this story, right?
yeah, but that's like, I don't know, a lot of people
Yeah.
get that.
Ah, everyone, there's nothing. Okay. All right. All right.
So I was starting to like gain some followers, and I made it onto the Rising Stars page, which is if you gain enough traction in a short enough time, then it sort of pushes you up the ranks, and it gives you extra visibility on the website. And so that extra visibility helps you get more followers, and that kind of snowballs. And I guess I was doing well enough to draw the attention of Podium. I
Woo-hoo.
didn't like make top 3 on Rising Stars. I think I stopped at number 7 was as high as I got. And not everyone who gets in the top 7 gets approached by or gets approached by Podium. So I still today don't know why they approached me versus other stories that were there. I've tried asking them. I'm like, what was it? Like what metrics were you looking at? And they wouldn't give me an answer. So yeah, Podium approached me and they said that they wanted to license the book, and I said no. I said I wanted to keep my audiobook in print rights because I felt like I had already commissioned the cover art. I had already paid Justine Manzano to edit the book. At that point, I didn't think that there was anything that a publishing company could give me as far as like edits and cover art that I hadn't already paid for myself.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to maintain my ebook and print rights. And they said, okay, well, we're fine just doing the audiobook. And I said, yeah, that sounds awesome. And I didn't think they would say yes. I thought they were going to shoot me down after I told them no on the all rights. So, but they still went ahead with it, and they still offered me an audiobook contract for the first 3 canon books. Which is all I have written right now in the canon series, but I have it planned out through about 8 books. So we'll see if they're interested in doing future books, probably based on how well this book does on Amazon. So if the first 3 books do well, they'll probably pick up the next 3. If they don't, I'm going to be hunting Daniel Hennig down, and I'm going to be asking him to do it on my own dime.
Yeah. No, yeah. Let's go make it happen for all 3 books. And yeah, I'm sure I remember like Matt Dinneman done Call Carl, who's had a little bit of success, but Ace was publishing the first 3 books, and he's like, they only got the first 3, so we'll see if they do the rest of them. It depends on the success. And of course, like the first 3 did very well, and they were like, we're gonna do the other 3 right away. But yeah. Amazon reviews, yes, go out there, drop an Amazon review.
It really helps.
Yep.
I was kind of hoping I could pull some of my readers from Royal Road over to like help read or give reviews. So I was going for like 1%. If 1% of my followers like left reviews or something, then that would be 40 reviews. That'd be pretty big. So we'll see. I've been poking at my followers to like go and review, or if you have Kindle, you can download. It won't cost you anything to download it, but it still costs as a sale according to Amazon, which helps boost it up the ranks. So anything you guys can do to help, much appreciated.
Yeah.
Aw, you're a Mr. Friend of mine. Aw, thank you. That's so sweet.
That's good. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised too. This person, Jellybean, says it's not a crunchy story and uses ideas more common with traditional stories. I bet that's part of it, but I wouldn't be surprised too if they were like, you know what, we want something that like is very different and expand our representation. Like
I think I'm a good gateway to lit RPG from like traditional fantasy readers could read this and still enjoy it, and then now they're exposed to concepts that are common in lit RPG, and then they can go into like some more of the hard stuff.
This is an interesting question. Do you know, in terms of Podium, if they pay more attention to your Amazon reviews versus Goodreads or Storygraph? I mean, obviously they scouted you on Royal Road, so they must be looking at that,
Right. Yeah, I don't know. And I've tried to ask them, and they've been very tight-lipped about like what it is specifically they're looking for. I can say a pattern that I've noticed is that they've been more prone to approaching people who are writing cozy fantasy right now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, it seems to be a subgenre that's picking up. But as far as like what metrics specifically they're looking at, they won't say, even to their own authors.
I don't want to get on a big tangent, but like I do feel like cozy feels like the trendy thing right now, but I don't know if like how long I think that's gonna be a thing. What are your thoughts?
Every trend goes up and down, right?
Yeah,
I think cozy is sort of a response to a lot of people feeling kind of burnt out on like darker fantasy and just world events, and kind of wanting that escapism more. And so I think that's kind of why we've seen the rise of cozy fantasy. Is just it's just comforting and calm, and you can go into it and feel good at the end.
Yeah.
So I can see why that's becoming more popular.
That's a really good point too, and I think, like, Legends and Lattes, I think is kind of the poster child for cozy, and it hit, like, shortly after the pandemic, right? So,
Yeah, it was a
uh
good timing.
right? And I think maybe the next 4 years might be a little bit, chaotic, so maybe cozy will continue to be a thing, and
Oh,
that's all I'm gonna say on that. This is a
yeah.
wait, no, this one, Podium had a recent restructuring. I hadn't heard that. I would love to hear more in the chat
Me
about that.
too,
That would be
actually.
interesting.
I have not heard about that either. I really only interact with Podium as far as like them giving me like clips of my audiobook and stuff. So yeah, that's
So
interesting.
this is your Amazon debut, but debut is a bit of a misnomer because you've got how many books on Railroad now?
5.
How the fuck did
But
you write 5 books in a year? What the
I didn't write 5 books in a year. I wrote 3 books a year. So I actually started the year before I posted on. So I posted the first chapter of canon on January 1st, 2024, and I started writing the first chapter of canon in like January 2023. So I spent a whole year writing canon book 1, canon book 2, and a little salty book 1. And then the next year, while I was posting those on Royal Road, I was writing canon book 3, Fire, and Night. And so I've posted 5 of those of the 6 that I just mentioned. The only one I haven't posted yet is Knight in Shining Armor, and I'm planning on starting that Monday. So
Oh, wow. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
it's already been running on my Patreon. It's about 3/4 the way through the book right now, so I'll be posting it pretty quickly here. I
Nice.
just needed more time to edit things.
Yeah, so this goes back to this question that was a while ago. I told you I'd get back to it. I just wanted to get there. But yeah, more meta question. Did you have a desired word count in mind? And did you have to increase or decrease your natural word count for writing? So that's natural word count. What's a
Well, yeah, so I came from, like I said, I was trying to get in traditional publishing, so there's
yep.
very rigid word count expectations in traditional publishing. And actually, believe it or not, I know from the number of F-bombs I drop in Glass Cannon, you might not believe this, but I was writing middle grade fiction, so fiction for kids. And I was writing queer, dark fantasy books for like 12-year-olds, basically, which was a lot of fun. But I was always an overwriter. Every single time I wrote a book, it was too long, and I had to like try to cut it back for what the industry wanted. So when I went to Glass Cannon, I was like, you know what? As long as it needs to be, whatever. And so like I didn't go into the first book with a specific word count in mind. I was like, I'm just going to tell the story and see how long it ends up being. And it came out to 120,000 words. And I'm like, that's pretty good for like lit RPG and progression fantasy. That's actually on the low end, even. And for Podium specifically, I think that's about their minimum because they
Oh,
don't want to
interesting.
dip under like 15 hours for an audiobook because people look at the length of the audiobook and
That
they
makes sense.
determine like what's the best deal effectively for them. So if you
Yes.
have a
Yeah.
really long audiobook, that's great. So the fact that mine came out to kind of the low end of what Podium and other publishers are looking for was just luck. And then I've been basically kind of roughly aiming for the same chapter and same length for all of my other books. So Canon Book 3 is the longest so far that I've written. It's about 20,000 words longer than the other books. But they're all about 40 to 50 chapters, roughly. And so I feel good when I'm writing the story, and around chapter 20 or 25, I'm hitting the midpoint. I'm like, okay, I'm on track for my typical 40 to 50 chapter book.
Wild. Okay. Uh all of these I want to get a little bit more into kind of craft and process, but I want to talk a little bit more about kind of the books themselves and kind of the creative the universe that you've created. They're all these books that you've posted and whatnot are related, right? Is there a name for this creative universe like the Cosmere, or do you have your own name like that?
I call it the NPCs saga because everything has to be a pun with me. So every book title is a pun for all of the other side stories too. So NPCs is a play off of NPCs.
Love it.
And the seed aspect hasn't been explained yet, but I think there's enough clues there that people can put it together.
Anyone in the chat, if you've started to put it together, I want to hear it. I want to hear it. So you've got I can't believe 5 books already, and like the 6th is coming out, right?
Yep, the 6th one I'll be starting next week.
Amazing. All right. How do you have an idea of how many total like views you have across all your and I know you're like, man, like, you know, everyone does
Good
that.
question. Canon was 700,000 before I
Stubbed it
stubbed
out.
it, and then
Yeah.
when I stubbed it, I think it went down to like, I don't know, 300,000 or 400,000 or something like that.
Interesting. Okay.
Because
So you
they
like
take
you
they take away
effectively,
the
yeah.
views of the
Okay.
chapters that
Okay.
you remove. So that was 700,000. I don't know. I'm gonna check right now. What are
Yeah.
my other book views at?
Yep, I want to know. Yeah, as Kelp says, your productivity levels are as insane. Which again, I want to ask how I can steal your magic and be faster.
I got about 200,000 for Friendly Fire and
Okay.
1,000 for A Little Salty. So between those, I would say a
That's a
million
million.
total views across all of the books that I've posted.
Well, that's not that. Those are the 3, right?
Yeah, so Canon has book 1, 2, 3, and then
Right.
Fire and Salty. So those are the 5. So
I
across
see.
those
I see.
5
I see.
books,
Okay.
I
Right.
have
Right.
about a
Okay.
million views.
I
And
understand.
then,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Damn. Dude, a million views. I mean, wow. That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm just hoping like I can kind of take some of that momentum to Amazon, and
Yeah.
then maybe one day I'll be able to go full time with this.
Yeah. Well, that's the dream, right? So, how many chapters do you post per week on Royal Road?
Um, it changes since right now I'm just finished Fire. Actually, Fire's last chapter posted yesterday. So when Fire was running, it was 4 chapters a week. And when Fire was overlapping with A Little Salty, it was 7 chapters a week. But
Wow.
those were only overlapped for a couple of weeks, I think. So typically 3 to 4 chapters a week is standard for me.
Dang. And how much are you like? I mean, you had a big backlog before you started posting, but how much are you actually like writing per? Let's get into the process a little. How much are you writing per week?
Great question. So, for those that don't know, I got laid off in December, so
Womp
that's
womp.
fun. Yeah, but I've been like treating writing as a full-time job ever since then. So I've been trying to increase my productivity and increase my output since I have no excuse. I'm at my house all day when I'm not walking my dog, so I better be writing more. So when I had a full-time job, I was writing 2 to 3 chapters a week, I think. I can actually calculate it. So I have 50 chapters per book, and I wrote 3 books a year. So that's 150, 150
Yeah.
chapters
So
that I
like
wrote in a year.
3 a
So
week.
yeah, 2 to 3 a week. So yeah. And then right now, since I've started treating this as a full-time job, at least until I get a new job, I've been trying to write 1 chapter a day, and I do that Monday through Friday, and I give myself Saturday and Sunday off, or they're catch-up days if I missed a day earlier in the week. So right now it's been 5 chapters a week.
How?
Well,
So like,
they're not
so your
long
chapters
chapters, first of all.
they're around like 2K or one and a
About
half.
2,000. I would say
Yeah.
2,500 is my standard. 2,000 is the low end. 3,000 is the high end. I try to hit about 2.5. For me, I write about 1,000 words in an hour if I'm like laser focused and on track. So theoretically, I could write my daily chapter if I just sat down and wrote for 3 hours. I should be able to pound it out. Um, I have ADHD, so it sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't. If I have my Adderall, then I can stay a lot more focused for a lot longer.
Yeah.
But especially like before this, when I was working full time, it would be kind of just like finding time in the evening, and it would be like 20 minutes, and then I'd go make dinner, and then I'd write for another 20 minutes, and then I would meet up with my writing buddies and we'd watch an episode of an anime, and we call them anime sprints. It's like
Nice.
it's basically to keep each other like accountable. Okay, one episode of anime is 20 minutes. That's our reward. Now that we've watched an episode, we're not allowed to watch anything else until we spend 20, 30 minutes writing. After we've spent 20 or 30 minutes writing, we're allowed one more episode if we want to. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
kind of what I've been doing for my accountability buddies. But yeah,
That's a, yeah, totally agree with what Chad is saying. Like, yeah, 1K a day is a good day. 2K is pretty fantastic.
yeah,
Like,
before I was full time, 1K a day was my goal. I tried to hit 1K a day if I could, which is about an hour of writing in the evening after work. And sometimes I could, sometimes I couldn't. Sometimes I'd try to spend the weekends making up for whatever word counts I didn't get done during the week. I think I calculated it and averaged over the whole year. It averaged out to like 800 words a day. So a
mhm.
little under my 1,000 a day goal, but that's what the yearly average was when I was working full time. And then right now, like I said, I'm trying to double that. So
So what, like, I mean, this is one of the things I think is interesting is like that ability to kind of jump in for 20 minutes and make progress. Like, I don't know.
it's hard.
Yeah, like how words. I don't know. Like every time I like open my document, it feels like it takes a bit just to like ground myself again. And
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
like lately too, like I feel like a lot of times I do my best writing in the morning, which gets totally screwed up with like all the things I need to do for my kids and my dogs in the morning. And again, 5 dogs is too
All the
much.
distractions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And then I've got work that I need to do, and for some reason, people expect me to do work in the morning. Like,
Yeah,
um,
it's hard doing it when
right?
you're working full time. So this has been nice that I can kind of like take a break and, but I've still been trying to write in the morning, and then if I can finish the chapter before lunch, then the afternoon can be chatting with like friends on Discord, scheduling swaps, answering my emails, researching ads, doing all of the like business
The
side of
busy, yeah,
things. So if I really try to get that chapter in the morning, because then I will feel really good about myself by the time I hit
yeah,
lunch, and then I'm like,
yeah,
okay, everything after that is gravy.
right.
But yeah, it does take like for me, I have to get back into things. I have to reread at least part of the previous chapter just to like kind of get the flow going again so it doesn't feel disjointed.
Right,
And I
right.
think just the fact that now I'm writing every day, I'm kind of almost like I'm very comfortable with what I wrote the previous day because it just happened. I just wrote it. And so
Yeah,
there's less of me needing to reread what I wrote to get back into the flow because it's
yeah,
more condensed versus when I was doing it full time and it might have been a couple days since I wrote and then I
yeah,
do need to like spend more time refreshing myself. So the fact that it's just kind of like always there at the front of my mind, even when I'm walking my dog every day, I'm like thinking about the story and what needs to go in the next scene, and so it's kind of like fresh there when I sit back down to write.
yeah. Makes sense. So yeah, when I'm able to be at my most productive, like it definitely helps to be writing even just a little bit every day because it kind of keeps your brain in it. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So uh yeah, what you're posting on Royal Road, there's a fair number of people that are pretty clearly posting like their first draft on Royal Road, you know. But I know that you have like critique partners, and you had a big backlog. I don't really think that it's your first draft that you're posting on Royal Road, is it?
It's not, no.
Yeah,
I think I'm too self-conscious to post my first draft on Railroad, but I might here soon, we'll see. I really wanna get Friendly Fire 2 out to my readers because Friendly Fire just ended yesterday, and I don't want them to wait forever, so I'm writing it right now, and I'm about 10% into it. Um, and I might start posting some chapters on the Patreon before I've fully finished it and fully edited it. But I do want the entire book complete before I start publishing it to Royal Road. So I feel bad that the Patreon kind of gets the more rough version for some of these that I'm in the process of writing, but they do get it a month or two early. So there's that.
right. I imagine that they probably like that, you know? Like, I mean, plus, like, I mean, you could get that rough version on Patreon, and if you're super committed, you can go get like that sort of more polished version on Royal Road and get and see both and like draw comparisons, right? Like,
Yeah, there's definitely some things that I've changed or not anything I changed significantly between Patreon and Royal Road, but things I polished up definitely.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And
I
I'm
was
so glad though that I do have. I'm really glad that I don't post my first draft on Royal Road. For Friendly Fire, that one had an ending that was infamous with my critique partners. They all hated it. I never had a single book that my critique partners and beta readers have hated before, but they hated the last chapter, and thank God it was only one chapter. I only had to rewrite one chapter from scratch, and everything else could be the same. But yeah, I had Fire make a choice at the end that people did not like, and so I changed it. And now yesterday I posted the last chapter, and they loved it. So I'm like, thank goodness my
yeah.
beta readers were there to stop me, or I would have had a riot on my hands. So that's why I can't post my first draft. I need that, like, people
Yeah.
to at least give it a once over and notice if there's any big problems with it.
Yeah. So like when do you make time for editing then? Like I guess after the drafting that you're doing in the beginning of the day?
Great question. Whenever I can squish it in. Sometimes, like last year, the reason actually that my word count was under 1,000 a day, because most days I did hit 1,000, is there were days that I didn't write at all, and those were days that I was just editing. And sometimes I just needed a break, and I'm like, I'm not going to write anything until I finish editing this book. And so if I go back and look through, I think like June, I didn't have a single extra word that was written in June because I spent the entire month just editing Friendly Fire. So sometimes I just got to take a break from writing to put
Yeah.
time aside to edit.
Sure.
Now that it's full time, I'm gonna try to do write in the morning and edit in the afternoon. We'll see how that works.
No, yeah. I'm starting to realize if I could do like full time, it would be something a little bit like that because like I need to have kind of the fresh mind in the morning, and but then like in the afternoon I start to get like a little bit groggy, and like I can't. I think drafting is too close to daydreaming to do it while groggy, because I'll be like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let me just think.
Yeah, it's great for like brainstorming, but
Sure. Yeah.
it does take a lot of focus to write. Like
All
it's
right.
work. It's
Yes.
fun, and I love the stories I come up with, and I love the characters, but
Yes.
it's work to create that.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Okay. Uh, awesome. Um. So, Glass Cannon is out yesterday, and it's now out available. Like, of course, it was just came out yesterday, and no author likes to hear that. When's the next? But I know that you already written all the next. So, like, when are more of them going to be coming to Amazon? What's
It's
the plan?
already on pre-order.
Oh,
So,
what?
yeah, you can go up. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing as far as marketing. I'm just learning it as I go. I've
Yeah.
read a
Yeah.
bunch of books, but putting it into practice is something entirely different. So, my thought this year was that I would publish all the 6 books that I previously wrote across this year. So every 2 months I'd publish a book. And when
Wow.
I
Wow.
publish
Wow. Wow.
the
Okay.
first book, the second book would be up for pre-order. So
hmm
if people finish reading that first book, they can get to the end and say, "Hey, if you like it, you can pre-order book 2." And then when book 2 publishes, it will be delivered to their Kindle or whatever, and then at the end of book 2, it will say, "Hey, if you enjoyed this, the next book's already on pre-order." So I'm kind of like going to chain them
Yeah.
each to each other. So I don't know if that's going to work or not, but it sure will be an interesting experiment.
Love it. I really like too the cover for this second book. I think Cannon looks so cool here and
He's
interesting with it.
evolving.
Right? He's got this big like cloak. I can share the screen unless you have it somewhere, but I want to show this. Hang on. Do, do, do. Um,
I've had some of my queer friends joke about how attractive he is and how that shouldn't be allowed as a glass homunculus.
right. Yeah. I don't know that I mean, you do you. Like I don't want to yuck someone's yum, but now I do want to see him with abs though. That is gonna be hilarious.
I wonder if I could bring up the book 3 mock-up I have.
I mean, if you want to, that's up to you.
How do I share it on your screen? Do I
I'm gonna
just send it?
share. Let me share first. This is
Nice. That's book
the
2.
right, right. Bo, doesn't this look cool? Like, look at that, Bo. Like, I like. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty neat. Like, and it's so like I just love that this is. It's very clearly like reads fantasy, but like, different than than a lot of what you might expect. I like it. So yeah, down at the bottom, there's probably like a present and then a share.
Let's see.
Present,
Ah,
share screen. Yep.
let's do that. Let's see. Which one am I streaming? Oh, I don't want to do a tab. Let's do the
Yeah.
entire. Let's do.
Yeah, Bo, that was a library up there. Yep. And yeah, the colors of super nice.
Won't let me hit the share button, it looks like.
Really?
Yeah, it's grayed out. That's okay. Don't worry about it.
Well, I guess everyone's gonna have to wait to see.
You'll have to wait. It's in the works, but Canon has abs, guys.
Oh, this is interesting. If these take off, would you think about publishing some of your past non-lit RPG works as well?
Yeah. Actually, so just in the last couple of weeks, I've been approached by Tapas about taking some of my books to their platform. And I was like, sorry, like Canon is literally publishing next week. I'm not taking it to Tapas. And they're like, what about your other books? And one they wanted was A Little Salty. And A Little Salty didn't do as well on Royal Road. I still love the book, but I think the character who's a teenager is just too impulsive and angry, and she makes a lot of bad decisions as an impulsive, angry teenager would in life and death situations.
Mm-hmm.
But Tapas wanted it, so I'm actually going to be talking with them about releasing the next 2 Salty books on Tapas first before I bring them to Royal Road. The Royal Road readers are still getting them. But so that's an interesting development there, and we'll see how that goes, kind of branching out. But they also were interested if I had any backlog. So I'm getting to your question, Joe. This is a really roundabout way to get there. And so I have 2 books that I'd previously written that I was like, well, if you guys are interested in some of my other non-lit RPG stuff, I have these other novels if you're interested. So I don't know, maybe those will get edited and put on Tapas, and maybe then eventually that will go to Amazon or something. We'll see. Find
out. First of all, this is brilliant. You need to share Ab Canon on Patreon first. That's smart.
Yeah.
I also love Swole Cannon. Love it.
Yep. He's good. It's actually hilarious. Like, I didn't even tell my artist that she had to make him like act all hunky, but he did anyway. So
yeah,
it's perfect.
Would die if you published your middle grade books. You could make those available like as a downloadable purchase on Patreon, right?
I could, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Like middle grade doesn't do well typically in ebook form.
That makes sense.
I know that like some of my diehard readers would just read it anyway because I wrote it, but they wouldn't be really the target on. Thanks, Joe. But yeah, I don't know. I do really love those books. They were near and dear to my heart, especially the Nightmare Thesis, which is about a couple of kids. One is trans and one is non-binary, and one is born on Earth and one is born in Dreamland, and they are both half human, half nightmare on their mother's side. And they like kind of bounce back and forth between the waking world and Dreamland, and they fight Sandmen and they fight nightmares, and so it's just like, I don't know, it was a really fun book.
Okay, so we're getting close to an hour, but I still have questions if you're good. If people want to hang out and chat in the chat some more. You good, Kia, to talk more?
Oh yeah, I can stay as long as you guys want.
Excellent. So Bo, actually, well, this kind of relates because you were mentioning Tapas, and I hadn't heard of Tapas before, but it's tapas.io, right?
Yep, I believe that's right.
Yeah, and so it looks like this is, I mean, I feel like there already were like a few different areas where serialized stories were sort of popular online, but I think Royal Road has like taken off in ways that are incredible. But there's like Campfire is becoming a place for cozy. Tapas I hadn't heard of before, so tell me a little bit more about Tapas, and then let's get to Bo's. Well, unless you want to get to Bo's question first, but either way, I want to hear about both of those, Kia.
So Tapas has built-in functionality that Royal Road doesn't have that
Mhm.
kind of combines what people are doing with Royal Road and Patreon, and that
Ah,
if you want to pay more, you can have access to advanced chapters.
got it.
So that's sort of built into the functionality of the site.
Mhm.
And so theoretically, you can be making money directly on Tapas. And one of our viewers, SB Drag, has done a lot of stuff on Tapas, so they can probably talk
Oh,
about
really?
it
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
than I can. But
Tell us.
yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Like I haven't really done a lot with Tapas before. I'm just kind of looking into it for the first time, but it does seem like an interesting model, and it would be good for me specifically because they agreed not to do an exclusive contract, so I could still take my story somewhere else after the time limit expires on the Tapas site. Don't
I
know about Campfire though. I've never worked with Campfire. I know that it exists. To answer Bo's question,
yeah,
but I've not really spent a lot of time looking into it. So that's a possibility.
fair enough. As I'm looking at tapas, holy crap, that is views. So like some of these have had like I guess it shows like views right on as you're kind of like scrolling. Some of these have like 70 million views on one of
Oh
these stories.
yeah, people can make a living if they're popular.
What the fuck? They're 202 million views? That blows my damn mind. Okay. Uh
Yeah, so next time
mm,
you're like, "Oh, you had like 500,000 views, Kia," and there's like all these people with like hundreds of millions.
all these people. Yeah. All of yeah, okay. But what kind of stories are doing really well on Tapas? Because it does seem to be that like that the different sort of serialized marketplaces tend to like niche down, you know?
Yeah, as far as I know, it's more on the like romance side, or that's more common on Tapas than it is on Royal Road. Romance on Royal Road is very hard to pull off.
Right.
Um, but yeah, there is still just like action and lit RPG on there as well.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. 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 Cool. So we talked about like Royal Road and um I don't know that we've talked enough about like the sorts of things that are popular on Royal Road and like you really intentionally like were like because you were pursuing traditional before you were like no I'm gonna do I don't care what is like popular even though you're probably like aware of it you were just like I'm gonna do what I want um so how was that experience and what was the phrase that you named some of the things that what was it like Royal Road debuffs, I think you called it.
Oh yeah, the non-human debuff, which
Yes,
is
yes.
if your character isn't a human, immediately you're reducing your potential audience because more people are interested in human main characters than non-human main characters. Same thing if you write like a female main character. Inherently, male main characters are just more popular on the platform than female main characters, and especially if you make your male main character gay, that is definitely a debuff. But when have I ever written to market before?
Yeah, that's no fun. Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, but as Jellybean said, it's a buff for them. It's a buff for people who enjoy my books. They like
Yeah.
this is a good thing. And so I found people who like my work by writing what I wanted to write instead of writing what the market wanted.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Um, um, so but generally, like, I think that's an awesome thing to do, and I think that's one of the advantages of indie. But I am kind of curious to talk about, like, the things that are very popular on Royal Road now, and if you sort of see that maybe some of that is changing a little bit, or do you think it's sort of just still like the isekai lit RPG with, like, straight male characters is, like, the thing still? What do you think?
I think isekai lit RPG progression fantasy will always be the thing for Royal Road because that's what the site was made for originally.
Mm,
And the fact that there's stuff that isn't that is more that they've just attracted a large amount of readers and writers, and so that's kind of becoming more broad. But always, if you write lit RPG, Royal Road is the place to go post it on.
right.
That's like the place for lit RPG and progression fantasy. Um, and then there's other platforms that specialize in other things, like Scribble Hub. If you have queer characters, that's their jam. So
Mhm.
I double post my stories both on Royal Road and Scribble Hub, and it's been interesting to see which stories were a lot more popular on one platform versus the other. So that's been interesting.
Has there been anything that's been like significantly more popular on Scribble Hub?
Yeah, Friendly Fire, which also did
Yeah.
well on Royal Road, did really well on Scribble Hub.
Isn't Friendly
Friendly
Fires the one that you got like top, like you got number 3 in
Yeah, got it to
Rising
number
Stars,
3.
right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was so happy. I'm glad
Yeah.
that I was not expecting Friendly Fire to do well on Royal Road because it is gender bender where the main character gets transported to the world and wakes up in the opposite body. But I wrote it such that the character was trans and she was effectively closeted her whole life, and she didn't really know that she was trans when she was living her life as a human on Earth, and she just knew that something was wrong, something didn't feel right, and then after she ends up and in a female body um, in the other world, and she starts exploring more with her gender identity and okay, do I still identify as a man or do I identify as a woman? And that's basically what like start allows her to start exploring that.
Hmm.
Um, then that she eventually comes to decide that she does identify as a woman. I thought that would bomb on Royal Road.
Right.
Was not expecting any sort of support for that story. I did tag it as gender bender, and I put in the blurb that the main character was trans. And I think for the most part, that pretty much filtered out people who weren't interested in that. So the people who did come and read it were the intended target audience. So it did a lot
Nice.
better than I was expecting. I still got some reviews that were like, "It's good, but why is there the gender stuff?" And I'm like, it's right in the title, guys. I don't know what to
Yeah.
tell you.
Because I want it.
It's
That's
like
why.
it's literally the premise of the story. Like
Yeah.
I don't know,
Right.
I don't know what you came looking here for.
Right.
But yeah, so that one did really well in Scribble Hub, and it did better than I was expecting it to do on Royal Road as well. So that's why
Nice.
I'm hurrying to get the second book out now.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, like, are you really nervous about the concept of posting like early drafts of that book, or do you like? Part of me thinks like I wanna finish my draft of my book one and like put it out and feel really confident with all the editing. But
Mhm.
like if it has any sort of readership at all, I almost want to just like pump out book two like as and I feel like that would the feedback would feel so validating for me. But what is your thoughts?
It's a huge source of motivation is the
Yeah.
comments of people saying they like your stuff and would want to read more of it. It's very motivating. But yeah, as far as like writing it and posting it at the same time, I really like to have that space where I'm not posting my first draft and I have a chance to edit it first. But
Hmm.
on the other hand, I'm also able to give myself a little bit of leeway since I know this is not going straight to Amazon. This is not the final product. This is still
Right.
able to edit this even after it goes through Royal Road. So I want it to be the story that I want to tell on Royal Road, and I want it as polished as I can within reason. But
Yeah.
also, I allow myself to be like, it's okay if it's not perfect. I'm going to fix things. If there's something the readers didn't like, I could potentially fix that before I take it to Amazon. So that also kind of gives me a little bit of relief.
So one, with a Glass Cannon, were there any like kind of were there any changes at all, and were anything that you would call significant? And then two, has there been a point where like either like an edit or something where you're like, oh, I wasn't necessarily going to go in that direction, but actually that reader comment is like really cool, and like has there been something like that that you've decided to integrate?
So for the first question about if I changed anything with Canon after the Royal Road run, actually in that case, no, because I had already signed with Podium at that time, and they were
Mm.
already asking for my draft. So that was kind of weird in that Canon, like before I had even finished posting the books on Royal Road, they wanted the books to be turning
They
into
took
scripts
all
for the audio
three
narrators.
before
They
you finished.
two
Okay, okay,
I hadn't finished book 3 at that time, so they took the first 2 books,
all
and
right.
I was still working on book 3. And then,
Damn. Wow.
actually, I am still technically working on book 3. I need to get it to them in 3 weeks, so I'm doing my final edits. I've already written it, edited it. Now I got all my beta reader feedback. I just need to do one more, like, final pass to see if there's anything I need to fix up. So I'm almost there with that one. But, yeah, it was weird that, like, for the first 2 books, which I had been posting the first half of last year, I had to hand them over before they were done running on Royal Roads. So there were some things that people wanted to change, and I was like,
Mhm.
so I can't really change the ebook if I want Whispersync to
Yep.
stay consistent with the audiobook.
That
So
makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
and what was the second question about? Oh, is there anything I changed
Like based
as
on
a
reader
reader
feedback.
comment?
Yeah.
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 Nothing that I changed, but stuff that I was like, "Oh, good." Like, I was thinking about adding that element in, and it seems like readers do want that, so I'll make sure to include that because a lot of my drafts are, or my plans for future books are semi-plotted. I'm like half pantser, half plotter. I have like usually the first one third of the book is very solid in my brain. I don't know why. The beginning of books are always very solidly in my head, like every single chapter. And then I usually have like some midpoint that I know is going to happen and I know where the book is going to end. And maybe I have a couple scenes in between that are just like, guilty pleasure scenes that I really want to write.
Mhm.
And I know that I'm kind of writing between these gaps where, okay, we stop here and I know that I need to get to this point. So I got to write towards, the next midpoint or something.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I have some flexibility in some things not all planned out in advance. So when I see things like in book 1 or 2, people were really rooting for Canon to learn more glass magic and like get like a master or something to teach him glass magic. That was something that I had already knew I kind of want to put into book 3, and that just solidified my decision to do that. I was like, okay, this is good. I was worried like him going and training with someone on glass magic would be kind of boring, but the initial feedback I've gotten is that some of my readers' favorite chapters is just seeing him grow and learn more magic. So that's been good so far.
There's something so damn compelling about seeing that sort of growth, isn't there? Like,
I love character growth. What that means, though, is that characters need to start from a position where they need to grow, and
yeah.
that also can be some controversial in Royal Road. If you have a highly flawed character you're starting with, that can turn a lot of people off. I mean, not even on Royal Road, just in publishing in general.
Oh
So
boy.
you kind of have to like walk that line where if you're starting with a highly flawed character and you know they're going to get better later, you still need enough now to keep readers reading that enough that they're not frustrated with them. So.
My like main character in my novel one pretty much spends the majority of novel one in a bottle. So like
I
flawed,
love it. I,
flawed.
I don't know why I would like characters stuck in a bottle.
Yeah. Not quite like that, but yeah.
A little different.
Yeah, right. That's funny. Cool. I I am curious, I guess. I do feel, others have said that it is harder and harder to break into the industry these days, right? I feel like Royal Road is one of the ways to start gaining like a fan base, and get something like a measly million views, whatever. Like,
I'd like to think so. I will say that having a Patreon this last year has been very helpful for offsetting the costs of publishing and commissioning cover art and commissioning edits. So while that didn't cover all of the
sure,
edits and cover arts, it certainly helps make it more affordable.
right.
Even more so now that I don't have a job. So technically,
Mm,
Patreon is my only source of income at this time. I guess besides the Kindle
ebook
reads
sale,
and book
right,
sales that I
right.
but you don't get paid out until like 3 months later.
Yeah.
So technically there's money there that's
Mm,
compiling
mm.
that I won't see for 3 months. But um, so yeah, that Patreon was very helpful, and I think it's helped me with this launch. I'm not sure. I only have 3 reviews right now, and I've got a handful of sales, but I think that's still more reviews and sales than I would have gotten if I hadn't published on Royal Road first and hadn't been networking with other authors and making
Yeah.
friends with my readers and just kind of developing this really nice community.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Well, I think yeah, I love that. I think the Royal Road model is the best of like all worlds because like you're able to give it away for free and you gain a benefit of building a readership, but then people can support you on the Patreon and like get a benefit of having the advanced chapters, and then you're still able to get to the audience of like Amazon that's like later, and of course then they have the convenience of ebook and they can get the print, and now you can do audiobook. I think like it's a great system, and everyone, like I think more people could definitely go do it potentially. Although maybe there's something to be said for like the debuffs being an issue, but
I think output is the biggest limiting
Barrier?
factor.
Right,
Yeah,
right, right.
like they're voracious readers on Royal Road, and so if you can meet that need and you can put out a bunch of chapters, then you can gain a following for sure. But if you're only
Yeah.
putting out one chapter a week, it's going to be a lot harder.
Word. Wow. All right. Noted. Anyway, yeah, I think that's about all my questions. Is there anything specific you'd like to say?
No, I was just looking in the chat over here, just smiling at every. I've probably been like
A
smiling to
classic
myself the
story.
whole episode, like out of context, and I've just been reading the comments.
Oh wait, did I miss this? What is Magic Classic? I think that was just me miss here.
Maybe I did say
Gla-
classic. I don't know. Glass magic, classic.
I do love this though. Truly a classic story. I mean, that's a fantastic pun.
I love it.
Oh, really? Interesting. All right, noted. All right, I guess I got to do two at least, but because I feel like one is like actually sustainable for me, but two is maybe not. But
Well, and that's why I spent a year writing first and creating 150 chapters of backlog before I started posting, is so that I could meet that output and then keep writing new chapters. And I'm
yeah,
only now almost burnt through the previous backlog that I have. I think I've still got maybe 70 chapters of backlog.
pretty impressive. Well, everyone here, you should go buy Glass Cannon and go leave her review. It'd be awesome. Definitely help Kia. And like she needs it because otherwise she's gonna be a poor starving artist without a day job. Like, come
I
on.
am a poor starving artist without a day job. Well, I'm not starving. Not yet, anyway.
But tomorrow. If you guys don't buy the book, buy tomorrow. No, just kidding. Just
If
kidding.
I don't get a new job, then it'll be a problem.
Go to the Kia. Oh yeah. Honestly, want to start. Okay, just lay down. Yep. Oh yes, right. Yeah, don't take a. Well, like, isn't a like a short term hiatus is
Short term's fine.
like
Yeah,
between
like
books that's sort of expected, right?
as long as you communicate, like, and you're very clear. When I
Yeah.
was reaching the end of Glass Cannon, I said, "Hey, it's ending in the middle of March. I'm going to start up again in April. I'm taking 2 weeks off." Nobody complained,
Yeah.
so that was fine. But if you vanish without explanation, or
Sure.
you're gone for like a year, then that's
Gone for a year.
you'll lose followers for sure.
Right. Right. Good, good, good. Halfway through book one. I hope you're enjoying it. Jerusha certainly was. Love the book. And excited for you. Hell yeah. Way to go,
Thank you
Kia.
guys. Really appreciate your support.
Yep. I'm reading Jerusha's other comment here. Short. Yep.
Yeah, Zenith is probably the next most liked character after Noli. Zenith
Nice.
is Canon's love interest.
Oh, okay. All right. Zenith must be into glass abs.
Yeah, I mean, how many people would fall for a glass bottle of ink, really?
All right. Kia, this has been delightful. Always a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you for being here. Where, of course, can people find and follow you online, please?
So I have a Blue Sky account instead of a Twitter account, and it's the same name, Kia Leap. Otherwise, you can find me on Discord, and I will give you the link if you want to put that at the bottom of this video. And you can find me on Royal Road again by Kia Leap, and you can find my books on Amazon by searching for Glass Cannon.
Also, I think it works if you search for Kia Leap also, but yeah, Glass
Oh
Cannon,
yeah,
Glass and Kanin Cannon. Search that way, you'll find it.
yes. Here's how you spell it. And
Ooh,
you can also find my website kialeap.com, which
there we
will
go.
link to everything I just said.
Perfect. So, guys, like, make sure Kia doesn't starve. Go get the book. Leave that review. Help out. And yeah.
Well, thanks, guys.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, Kia. Thanks to everyone in the chat. It's been fun. I've had a good night. And for you, Kia, for everyone else, no one's told you today. You're an absolute legend. Yay.